First off, hey there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Interviews. I'm Arlyeon.
I'm Lovi.
And we're here today with Steve Gall of Pugware.
Oh. Sorry. Hello. Sorry.
He's the developer of Shrouded In Sanity and more recently Usurper, and we also have Jam of Studio Jamming.
Hello.
Who does, all the music. So, we're just gonna kick right in here with our first question. So Usurper is a very different game from Shrouded In Sanity, your prior one. As whilst there's still some light Souls-like elements, it's by and large a Metroidvania. Was the goal always to create one, and are there any other particular game genres you intend to tackle?
Well, it's not exactly as different as I would have liked originally. So, yes, the intention was to make a Metroidvania game, but unfortunately too much of the Souls elements have been left in, which is actually understandable considering that Souls is, most people would say, actually is a Metroidvania. So I guess it makes sense, but still, I couldn't shred it off enough. And yes, I definitely want many different genres to try in the coming games, from strategy to shooting to tactical to pretty much everything, even the dating sim.
My brain just briefly derailed there at Eldritch Dating Sim. It'd be like Nyarly Chan.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, the bad ends are all the official ends in that, I think.
If there's an afterlife, Lovecraft will beat me up there. I know. For misusing everything that he stood for. So, all of his work, so there you go.
Since the release of Shrouded In Sanity, you've since brought on board an artist, Rock, for the character portraits. How did you come across him? Is he going to be a mainstay on projects going forward? And are you going to expand your team further for future projects?
Well, I actually came across him by him doing some fan art for Shrouded In Sanity. He actually made Queen Eleanor, Weimar, into a character portrait of how he would imagine it would look if it was added to the existing text. And it was really impressive for just a quick fan art. And when eventually it came to Usurper, and I came to the realization that my character portrait art is absolutely horrendous, and it's not going to do any justice to the game, and especially not to the genre, where I believe, a level of glorified beauty is expected if we're talking Igavania and Metroidvania. So I eventually talked to him, and he was like, yes, he would be very willing to actually do art for Usurper. He loves the characters, so he's very interested. So yeah, definitely. And I will definitely want to add more team members as it goes along, but that's a very hard process because I was extremely lucky with Rock. Because not only his prices were reasonable, but he completely actually understands what the game is about. So it's not just an artist hitting you up that, hey, can I work for you or something like that. No, he actually does like the material. So there was immediately an understanding. So I could pretty much rely on him to go in and do exactly what I would expect of him. So it works very easy. And Gem is another thing that I knew him for years, so immediately there was some groundwork there where I would be able to rely on him. So yeah, I would want to grow the team if possible, but that's a really high luck requirement.
Is there any specific direction you'd be looking to grow the team in?
Eventually, and now this is further down the line because I'm still gonna make 2D games first. Eventually, I would love to have 3D artist, definitely a modeler or animator, depending on which one I excel at better. So to compensate for it, the weakest parts are where I need someone else.
Fair enough.
So lots of people would tell you that I need a pixel artist, and I would agree with them.
Well, what did you learn from the process of making Shrouded In Sanity, and how did that change the way you approach the development of Usurper?
I learned just about everything from it. from start to finish, a lot of things that were not, obvious to me, but I still ignored them. Like, definitely keeping the scale to a smaller smaller scope. But then guess what? I made Usurper much bigger than Shrouded in Sanity, so apparently I didn't learn anything. So I don't know about what I actually learned.
I mean, at the very least, I recall you mentioned there were certain shortcuts in coding and things that you were like.
So in general, yeah, coding definitely you improve every time. You come up with better solutions, faster solutions, shorter solutions, more elegant code, as they say. So yeah, that actually did improve. But other than that, I'm not really sure.
Fair enough. So here's a just fun little question: is there going to be a hidden pug in all of the Pugware games?
Yes.
Yeah!
All right.
How's been your experience with using Steam as a platform for your game, both for Shrouded in Sanity and your more recent title, Usurper?
It's a very good experience. A lot of people give hate to Steam, but I don't know. I think it's misplaced. I think it's more on the back end of the developers, because as far as I know, Steam will let pretty much anyone try anything, so long as it's within reasonable, rules. So it's unfortunately up to the developers of why the market looks like what it does. People say that, but Steam should apply a lot more curators and actually look at games and everything. But in my experience, they actually do look at it, because from their responses, I could tell that they actually played the game for a reasonable amount of time. So it wasn't just an automated machine just telling me that, the build doesn't work, so here's, fix this, and fix this. But so I don't know how certain games make it to Steam that are not even working or whatever, but in my experience, it's a very good platform.
So, actually now tackling questions like very specifically to Usurper, like what fueled the change of perspective from Shrouded in Sanity's 2.5D to Usurper's 2D?
Well, in Shrouded in Sanity, the 2.5D was a leftover of the original version. It was supposed to be kind of top-down, or like how a Zelda game looks, I suppose. So the depth, the movement, up and down, actually remained from that build, because Shrouded in Sanity was literally a mess of design, unfortunately. So I didn't want to make the same mistake again. Plus, for a Metroidvania map, you definitely want the jumping and the heights, and the very story itself, the Citadel. It was not going to be a flat place. And if you want something tall, you should definitely go to the side view instead of 2.5D or even top down.
Fair enough.
What inspired the story and artistic direction for Usurper?
Well, Lovecraft, but mainly the story. After Shrouded in Sanity, I lined out about 7 games in a row, as in the story, the overarching story. So that's what inspired the setting again, the same setting. Otherwise, the story, I don't know how to explain it. I lined up the whole story going forward for like 7-8 years, and just pick the next part.
Wait. 7 games? I know there's one for the Queen, one for each of the knights.
Well, and it goes even further, obviously, so it keeps going. Well, the setting will end in 3 games, but there's more after, if I can help it.
It's more like, because it's been changing characters per, and you've like alluded that it's going to continue changing leads in each one. I'm curious about who would be the 7th.
Yeah, well, you'll see. That's very far down the line, and things will change until then. So,
which, on that note, how has the story evolved or changed from how you initially envisioned it, if it has?
For Usurper, not at all. Basically, not at all. I lined it out, and I was actually surprised myself that it remained exactly as it was, because with Shrouded in Sanity, there was a lot of changes going from beginning to end. But as I said, that was like a freakazoid monster of design and story and everything that gave birth to that game. Some would say that it's actually its charm, so I suppose that's a good thing. But yeah, after that, I actually lined it up, and it remained the same. It didn't have to change. I don't know, it just worked out.
Well, what has it been like to write a game whose narrative is intended to sprawl across multiple entries?
Okay. Well, just like any other story, you break it down into the parts as it goes up and down and heads toward a conclusion, and you just spread it out much further. And within that overarching narrative, you have your actual stories for the games. So Usurper and my next game will also have its own very own standing story. So I don't know. It's like, if you like history, if you look at any year, or like let's say 10 years, within that 10 years there's a lot of stories per se, and they form an overarching narrative. So I don't know how it's actually different from any big long books or like normal stories. You just break it down and spread it up, and you tell the smaller stories in more detail, pretty much.
Fair enough. So, what's been the hardest challenge when making the game?
I would say that actually changing to 2D and dealing with, let's say, jumping mechanics, and not actually jumping, but there were certain specific things that I wanted to put in, like the teleporting and all that, and all the late game abilities. Now they actually took some actual coding that I didn't expect it's gonna be so hard, because as you can see from the patch notes, I had a lot of trouble with the teleport blade, because I wanted a very specific, completely free teleporting, not just these are the pre-made points where you can teleport, where the original design came from, like Final Fantasy 15. You can only teleport to preset points, and I didn't want that. I wanted free teleporting, and I had to pay the price for that. I would say that was the hardest part of the whole development.
Fair enough. So, what's been amongst the hardest challenges since it's been released?
Not feeling sad. I don't know. Not feeling incredibly down.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you put your whole soul into something, and you don't know how people are going to respond. It could be positive, but with the internet, you're bound to get those quite few, or not allowed few, who are anything but nice. Fortunately, we've been pretty lucky, but there's always going to be some people who will go straight to reviews to air their grievances rather than trying to talk to the devs and sort the problems out.
My actual biggest problem was when I think that I'm inept at communicating certain game designs and how I want the player to think or feel or play, pretty much. And that might be just a terrible mistake on my part, that I try to force them think one way or another. But yeah, that I've been miscommunicating that's what I feel is my biggest letdown.
Is there anything that didn't make it into the game that you really wanted?
I actually don't think so. I think pretty much everything that I wanted to put into this actually made it in. Unlike Shrouded in Sanity, where a lot of things are left out.
That might have been one of the first times that we've heard someone respond no to that question. Yep.
Well,
good for you.
For this time, as I said, last time there were a lot of issues, and I think maybe that's the sign what I actually learned, that this time I managed to put in everything I wanted. Maybe I should look at it more positively.
So what's been your favorite memory of watching someone play the game?
Hard to say, because now there's a lot more funnier mechanics that I call funny anyway. Not so much the players, but I laugh at it.
I mean,
because
trap placement for one thing is always hilarious.
Well, no. In Shrouded In Sanity, my funniest moments watching other people play were definitely their reaction to the sacks.
Oh, the body bags, yeah.
The body bags, and the spikes, like that's my crueler side, when I kind of laugh at them, that yep, you're running exactly in the same trap 6 times in a row. All right, that's fantastic. That means I placed it well. No, I look at it that way, that yep, that's a trap that was placed well. No, I pulled back on the trap placements in Usurper, and I made them more visible, and I'm trying to be less of a cruel bastard.
Until New Game Plus.
Funniest moment in Usurper, maybe their reaction to certain NPC dialogues, because this time there's a lot of funny dialogue, either unintentionally or intentionally. That their reaction can be quite amusing to me. And I always love when a player just walks into some room, sees an enemy or an NPC, and say, "What the hell are you?" I always love that. That just makes my heart feel warm inside. Like, yep, I designed something well.
Fair enough. So, whilst it's likely a long ways off yet, you've mentioned an interest in prior conversation in adding a significant content update in the form of Relay down the line, a city that's fairly iconic in Lovecraftian literature. Would you care to elaborate on some of the ideas you've been bouncing around for this?
Well, I can some, but I don't want to, sell out all of them, because I actually want to do justice to the concept. Because if you read the book, that sounds like a fascinating place. Things open up in on themselves. Openings appear out of nowhere. Shapes are not what they should be. Up and down is not correct, which I love, by the way. So there's a lot of things in the book that's like about complete disorientation, and the sailors have no idea what's going on, and how even their spatial awareness is working and stuff like that. So I want to try to put that into the game. I'm not there's some obvious solutions to this, but I'm not gonna name most of them, obviously. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to make sure that the player will feel like they're actually in Relay, not just a green city covered in water and like coral or whatever. I actually want to feel a bit of cosmic horror, a bit of confusion. And that is why it's good for an optional content. I wouldn't make a game about completely that, because people would be horrified and very angry. But as an extra additional piece of content, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with experimenting on that a lot.
Okay, sounds all right.
Do you have any other particular content updates or features you may be considering implementing in Usurper?
I definitely, it's actually in the patch notes. I definitely want to add more playable characters, more weapons, and as I said, Relay. But other than that, I don't know. It's pretty much closer to complete than Shrouded in Sanity was. Oh yeah, and the boss rush, obviously. I was thinking of an endless mode, but I don't think that's a good idea. Not in its current implementation.
Moving on, recently you've announced the version of a free variant to Shrouded in Sanity in the form of its Freebirth. What fueled the release of this edition of the game?
Well, I always want to keep my games cheap, because I like cheap games, and I think that it's a good thing, No, I genuinely feel like you shouldn't ever overcharge for games. And looking at my skill level and stuff like that, I judge them to be this price. But I always, as I go ahead and lengthen the series, it won't be absolutely required to play the previous games, but there's a large majority of people who want to know that, oh, what happened before. I want to jump in and find out. So I just want to make Shrouded in Sanity more accessible in that way. And I was thinking that a free version will also just get it more exposure. So I don't know. I didn't see anyone actually try this a lot before. To actually make a game that you're still selling, make a free version of it, which is actually content complete aside from the extra stuff. So I didn't cut out any bosses or story or anything like that. It's a very generous free version. So pretty much that was the intention with it. I just want more people to be able to play it and then get in on the series. Maybe they also like the style,
Fair enough. Which, on that subject, with Usurper now released, with Shrouded in Sanity now having its Freebirth coming out soon, and with a really ominous sequel hook at the end of Usurper, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to give folks in the audience a teaser as to what project they might next expect from the studio, what's coming next in the series.
Well, I didn't think I hooked a sequel that much. I mean,
it's totally
no.
ending.
If you know the setting, you know that things are not going to work out anyway. So it's to be expected at this point. But yeah, the next game. Well, I can say a few things about it. I'm definitely not going to give away. I want to have the first impression be a very good one with a certain trailer I have in mind, which I'm very proud of. I can't wait to get it done. It's going to be, let's say, top-down, brutal Doom-like set on an island with a million eldritch monsters and a lot of cultists and a lot of gore. That's about all I want to say about that.
I mean, the moment you said a brutal Doom, like, I was like, oh yeah, we are going to be executing cultists.
Yeah, it's gonna be at least I hope so, my most polished and most focused game yet. That's why scale-wise it's a smaller one. I'm not gonna do a giant Metroidvania again anytime soon. So it should be a much more focused and cleaner and perfected experience. And it's gonna be a tight little brutal Doom shooter from top down.
Okay.
Lastly, do you have any words of advice you may have for aspiring devs?
Well, if I can do it, you can too. That's literally all I can say. That's, I think, is the best advice. As long as you do it. Oh, one thing though that I did learn. It's not motivation you want, it's discipline. Because motivation comes and goes, and you can't rely on that. And eventually, every project burns out on motivation. Eventually, you're going to be bored of it, no matter what. That's just a fact of life. Instead, learn a bit of discipline. I'm not talking about, like complete hour to minute stopwatch kind of discipline, but learn some discipline, and then you'll be good to go. You'll be actually getting the game done and out, and you'll actually get ahead.
That is really good advice, because that applies to so much. But secondly, Jam, so you're not left out. How is it to work on the Usurper soundtrack? Was there any particular tracks you really enjoyed and any you really struggled with?
Yes, plenty of both. I really loved working with Steve on Usurper. Orchestral music is just stuff that I love to produce. And, I worked with Steve, obviously, with Shrouded In Sanity, with both of our first projects. So it was nice that, he asked me back for the second one. And it went really well. It took a lot longer than I thought it would. But at the end of the day, I think the soundtrack came out really well. I'm pretty pleased with it. But of course, there were definitely bits of music that I struggled with. One particular one was the area music for the military base. Basically said to me, right, so I need a communist-era style of military marching music for this one. And I'm sat here thinking, oh my god, I've got no idea what to do here. I was like, panic. But yeah, once I grabbed a little inspiration, it slowly started to gather pace. And as soon as I got the bass, solid bass to start from, things progressed a lot quicker. And I think it's probably one of the most unusual pieces out of the soundtrack, but I think it still fits in fairly well. Another example of most difficult pieces that I can think of was one for one of the optional bosses. Now this piece started out many, many years ago when I first started working with Steve. So I was tasked with bringing that piece up to my current standards. Now that took not even getting a month of work. And yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think the final result came out really well considering what it started out as. As to my favourite pieces, well, one of the ones I'm particularly pleased with that I can think of is the boss of the Fog Eater. Mainly because it has some pretty quirky bits in it that kind of go hand in hand with the lovely Eldritch monster that Steve designed. So yeah, I think that one worked out well. I know Steve has some favourites, I think.
Oh, I have pretty much half of them, if not all of them, are my favourites.
The thing is, I asked, people would say different things to me. It's some people love the cathedral music, which, as you know, I absolutely hate, because I can't stand church organs.
I like the cathedral music, though I'm like, this church is so smarmy.
But yeah, generally speaking, any of the kind of latest bits of music that I did are probably my favourite pieces. Predominantly because about halfway through making the soundtrack, I actually decided to invest some of the money that I'd got from making the Shrouded In Sanity soundtrack and put that into purchasing higher quality instruments. And yeah, that made a huge difference to the quality of the final pieces. So, for example, background areas like the music in Streets of London at the bottom of the Citadel are probably one of my personal favourites, since they made full use of these brand new instruments. So, yeah, I think that about sums it all up.
That basically wraps it up in pretty neatly. So I'd just like to first off quickly thank both of you for just attending on today's show. Like, I appreciate that you took time out of your schedules to be our guest today.
No, not a problem at all.
Anytime. Well, not at any time, but yeah.
So I'd just like to let people know that you can buy Usurper and Shrouded in Sanity, though you can also take a stab at the Freebirth version on Steam. For news, there's at Pugware on Twitter, plus they have a Discord and YouTube that you'll be able to check out with links in this video's description. Is there anywhere else you'd like to send people, Steve? Or Jam? Actually, yeah. Jam, you have like a YouTube and a site for your music, right?
I do have a website, studiojamming.com. So it has all my music, all my design work, blah 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 blah. But yeah, we're working on getting a website for Pugware up and running at some point. So, but yeah, we will let you know as and when.
I'm lazy and can't do that.
There'll be
That
a
sort of
Pugware
thing.
website, though, guys. Just it might not be up in time for this video to
Probably
be up.
not. No.
So that said, though, yeah, if you folks enjoyed this type of content, feel free to like, comment, share on it, and also subscribe. Hit the little bell button. You'll get notices when we do new developer interviews, post little bits of footage about stuff we've enjoyed, podcasts, and upcoming tabletop stuff.
So, if you would like to see these two lovely people around, and if you would like to be in touch with more fellow indie game developers or gamers, there'll be a link to our Discord in the description below.
She just like went from like pinching me to like just like immediately professional mode.
Wish I could do that.
It's just uncanny. Anyways, yeah, so that's the end of this recording then.
Back to pinching.
Cries.